So when I post this podcast, it'll be Saturday, the 24th of October, 2020, meaning the elections are just 10 days away. Good day and welcome to the Breakaway Homestead Podcast. I am your host, Patrick, the Breakaway Homesteader. This show today is going to pull away from homesteading and rally up the prepper side of things because we are in a very small window, folks. Before we even get onto the topic, I'm going to try to politely draw a picture of our status right now in American history. So, of course, I'm talking about the election in 2 weeks between Donald J. Trump and Joe Biden. And let's not forget Joe Jorgensen as well, because we're even playing field here. Folks, I'm not here to give you guys a personal political opinion about the presidential race. I'm strictly trying to get you prepared for what is on the other side of this finish line of the United States elections for the president. Let's go back to the 2016 election. Close your eyes. Take the shock of the results of the election and amplify it by 100%. You've seen over the past year through several months how rioting and looting has impacted our country on a national as well as a local level. I don't know about you, but after the George Floyd incident this year, not only were our local chain stores looted, but transportation trucks that brought supplies to those stores were also pirated for their contents. People stood in the streets blocking roadways and highways, destroying vehicles as they see fit, as well as harming people. We just live south of Raleigh, North Carolina, and we had a lot of issues, and there still are random protests that get violent and random people that get into the roadways to express their opinions about their own beliefs. So now let's add COVID-19 on top of that. Our nation has been shut down and our food supply has been devastated by this virus. So folks, this wave is gone and the second wave is starting to show its ugly face. I can continue to talk on and on about these issues all day long, but the reason this podcast is taking place is strictly because of the election in 10 days. After the points we just barely touched, the chaos attached to them, our divided nations as a whole is at the precipice of disaster. I want you to grab a piece of paper and a pen, and I want you to write these questions down and answer them for your own situational awareness. Here's the first question. On November 3rd, if Donald Trump wins the second term, will everything go the same, or will there be some sort of backlash from the American leftists? Now think back to 2016 and the outrage the leftist Americans had, and now add on to that the looting and rioting that the American public now views as an okay means of showing their opinion and rage. How do you think that's going to turn out? So that's the first question. Here's the second question. On November 3rd, if Joe Biden wins the presidency, will everything go the same? Or will there be some sort of backlash from the American rightists? Say if right-wingers reacted the same as leftists in 2016, what kind of impact would there be? So both of these questions I just asked you, you should come up with the same conclusion. No matter which side wins, there is going to be chaos. This is what we need to do to prepare now in the next 10 days. And that's what this podcast is about. Preparing for something to happen when the election results come out. This is just what's coming up in the next few days, folks. Not talking about the period between after the election and the election day in the inauguration day in January, because that's a whole different story. This is a almost 100-day stretch between one day and the next day where this can go on crazy and build up over time before the election day and just blow up in our faces on election day. or not election day, but inauguration day, right? So, with that picture painted in your head, I want to go ahead and get into our podcast, what it's about. So today's subject is in the wheelhouse of having just days to prepare and what we should be going or doing right now. We want to prepare for the what ifs out there. I will start by saying that your geographic location greatly impacts the way you need to prepare, and that if you're an urbanite and live in a highly populated area and you have the means or the connections to consider calling out to somebody you may know in a more rural area or less populated area, spending the election night and possibly longer with them during that time frame. That way, if something happens, you're in a safe place, far away from the city where chaos will become more rampant. Now, elections this year is on Tuesday, and so it may not happen immediately. So you got Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. As you get closer to that weekend and as more people get off of work, it's going to give people the mindset, the opportunity to say the weekend is the time that we're going to take action. So again, from the election point forward, you might want to stay through the weekend because the weekend may be more chaotic than the actual day of the elections because it's a weekday. So with that, I want to quote somebody that I think is a very good person. He's a very good speaker. And his name is Abraham Hamilton III. And his quote is, "Stop worrying about what's going on in the White House and start worrying about what's going on in your house." Let's go ahead and start with what you should be doing in the next 10 days and how you should be doing it. And these are just some ideas. I want you to extrapolate on them and pull ideas from that, but I also want you to come up with your own ideas to get yourself prepared as quickly as possible. Hopefully, you've already prepared at this point and you already have a pantry or you've already seen enough from the COVID incident and from the rioting that maybe it would be a good idea to have that insurance to set up some sort of stockpile to prepare in case it happens again. They wouldn't call it waves if it wasn't going to happen a first, second, third, or fourth time. The 1929 Spanish flu actually had 4 waves. And so the second was worse than the first. The third was worse than the third was worse than the first, and the fourth wave was the weakest. If you're looking at history, it's only going to repeat itself over again. Rinse, lather, repeat. So now, before the stores shut down, or anything gets looted, or anything repeats itself, is the time to get prepared. The first thing you're going to want to stock up is on water. Your goal is to have at least 1 gallon of water per person and pet per day. You should aim to have at least a week's worth of water stored by the election. So you need to have 7 gallons of water per person and animal for a week. If one of the people in your family is breastfeeding, you need to add extra water to that. And if a baby's on formula, be sure to calculate water for making infant formula bottles as well. If you have a lot of people in your family, that can add up to many gallons of water. You can purchase large containers of water rather than the gallons to help save room. And of course, my dog's barking right now, but let's ignore that. He's outside playing with my wife, probably. Water is the most crucial thing you can have in your stockpile and disaster plan, which is why it's the first thing on our list here. In general, a human can live 3 or 4 days without water, but you can live a lot longer without food. So water takes precedence: air, water, food, and it is essential for life. So take this step pretty seriously. You want to have at least 7 gallons of water per thing in your household, whether it be an animal or a person. Lastly, let's not forget water's heavy. 1 gallon of water weighs 8.34 pounds. Depending on your need, those pounds will add up quick and must be evenly distributed to ensure your floor can hold the load. My recommendation is storing the water on a slab or concrete floor in a garage or your basement, the most bottom floor of your home. is the best place to store it. That way there's no stress on your framing of your house, and things don't sag and things don't break. If you have a crawl space, put that water there on the ground, just cover it up. Water in containers can be stored outdoors, no issues there. It just needs to be maintained for freshness and sanitation to inhibit mold or algae. If you store water outdoors, do not store them in clear containers. Make sure they are blacked out with black trash bags or thick black trash bags. Nothing that water's going to leak through or light's going to leak through, because it will grow algae. Algae is not deadly in drinking water like that. At least not the type of algae that's going to grow inside that'll be green. But if it's a different color, don't drink it. Follow your nose always and smell everything beforehand. If it's stored for a while, it will smell funny. It'll smell stale. And that's because it's lost its oxygen content and just needs to be shaken up to refresh that oxygen in the water to make it taste better. So that's the water. That's your first step. Second thing I want to talk about is flashlights. Head over to your local Dollar Tree, and they have plenty of flashlight options. Cheap, they're $1 a piece. Pick up at least one flashlight for each person of your family. Then take a look at what type of batteries each flashlight needs. Get extra batteries. You should have 1 or 2 sets of backup batteries for each flashlight. So when you go home, make sure you put these batteries and flashlights in a separate area, meaning don't put the batteries in the flashlight. Keep them together but separate. The reason why is storing batteries in a flashlight will cause the battery to drain quicker and also cause the battery to have some small electrical current, which could cause the battery to swell and expand to the point where it's leaking something, depending on what type of battery it is. Ideally, you'll have a storage container where you can access these flashlights whenever they're needed. These are not for everyday use, and so another reason why to keep the batteries out of the flashlight is so when you have to put those batteries into the flashlight, you'll know it's because of a heightened situation. So the next step is most preppers have a mantra about non-perishable foods. That's eat what you store and store what you eat, meaning stock up on the things you'll know you will consume. There's this thing out there called food fatigue of rice and beans that will hit hard and quick because it's not what you normally eat. If you don't eat rice and beans on a daily basis, you're going to get tired of it very quickly. Excuse me. But at this point, with only days before the election, you need to focus on purchasing non-perishable food with your stockpile. Non-perishable food is your friend when you need to get prepared in an imminent disaster. When apples and oranges are great, they have a short lifespan. You'll want to get the items that can last and last and last. You want them to last at least a year. Since we do not know the length of the upcoming loom and doom, the more you get now, the more you'll have when you need it the most. Do make sure to keep track of the expiration dates. Rotate your foods. You don't want to waste the food that you buy. So we have a free resource. Our Patreon page has a handy and free inventory list as well as a pantry stock up list from the basics to the advanced items to place on your shelves. I will be sure to include the links of those pages. They are great, and again, they're a free resource our patrons have made available for your use. Here are some suggestions to stockpile on that have that kind of lifespan. Applesauce, sealed. If it's open, make sure it's refrigerated, and it will not stay after it's been opened. Canned fruit, same deal. Oats, oatmeal packets, maple syrup, honey, flour, salt, sugar. Instant mashed potatoes is a good one. Instant gravy packets. Spices are a big thing. If you're eating beans and rice, spices can make all the difference in the world. Canned vegetables, canned soup, rice, chicken broth, or beef broth. If you don't have the space, chicken bouillon or beef bouillon. Ramen noodles, pasta sauce, tea and coffee, peanut butter, jelly, salsa, crackers, canned or cured meats. So just go ahead and take a look at those lists that we provided, and it'll give you a great idea about what you should be getting. The next thing is additional ways to cook. Food takes up two things. That's water and that's heat. Now, how are you going to cook all that food? Hopefully your electricity stays on, but it's not guaranteed. In these situations, you have to find another way to cook your food. One of the easiest things to grab while the getting is still good is a camping stove. They take small bottles of propane, the 1 pound bottles. So to make sure pick up a few propane canisters along with it. You might also need to grab some small cooking pots and pans designed for the camping stove. Because the stove is so small, it may not support the larger pots that you have on your stove, and it could topple over, causing a burn and a domino effect of many different problems. Another option is a grill, propane preferred, with a side burner. You'll probably have a grill in your backyard already, so pull it closer to your back door and use it as a cooking option. If you do use charcoal grill, do not use it inside your home. It's not safe. Charcoal produces carbon monoxide, which is a deadly gas that can cause you to pass out and not have oxygen. And not having oxygen is a deadly thing. So make sure you stockpile either propane or charcoal, depending on what type of grill you have. You'll also need a lighter or matches to go with that. So the next thing we're going to talk about is staying warm. How are you going to stay warm if you lose electricity? We are heading to a winter that's predicted to be colder than last year. So in the wintertime, warmth is crucial depending on where you live, especially if you live in the north. If you have a wood stove in your house, then you're set, so long as you have plenty of wood stockpiled. For those of us without that luck, staying warm can be a bit difficult. Go online and check your weather history, folks. Get an average lowest temperature for your location. That's per year. Take the last 20 years and get your average temperature range for the wintertime. Once you have that, go and buy sleeping bags rated for those temperatures. If all else fails, you'll at least be able to stay cozy in that bag. One of the most accessible choices is a propane heater. Buddy heaters are the most common, and you can get them in different sizes and to heat larger spaces. You also take the same 1 pound propane tanks that your cook stove would take. These will need plenty of propane bottles to keep them running consistently. You also have to have a carbon monoxide detector near the heater to stay safe. This is also where that preferred propane grill side burner could come in handy. You can use that to heat a small room as well. Another thing you're going to want to have on hand is a stocked first aid kit. If you don't have one, now is the time to get a first aid kit. Having a fully stocked first aid kit is crucial for all who want to be prepared for a disaster. You never know what might happen. A first aid kit needs to be able to take care of most any situation. If you can't get to the hospital and you have to jimmy rig something yourself, you want to have one, that knowledge, and two, the supplies you need to continue on breathing. That's just the way it is, folks. You can start small with a basic first aid kit. They are not expensive. I think you get a basic first aid kit for less than $10. And your local store should sell a first aid kit that has all the essential items like bandages or medical tape. If you're going to just get a basic first aid kit, honestly, the best place to find one that has the most stuff in it, believe it or not, is Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight has a great first aid kit. So once you get your first aid kit started, you'll be on the right foot. I would encourage you to make a large medical kit on your own. A full medical kit can get you through almost anything without the support of having to leave right away, or if you're stuck in a place that you can uphold a certain situation for an extended period of time. Folks, I would encourage you once again to head over to our Patreon page. We have a handy dandy build list and checklist of medical items that you can stock up, and it's a build kit from basics to advanced items to place in your first aid kit. Matter of fact, if you build the kit with all the items that are on this checklist, you would have created yourself a 4-shelf industrial first aid kit. The only difference between my build list and those that you'll find all over the internet, those checklists, is that my list comes with pictures, so you know exactly what you're buying. I will be sure to include that link below with the information of this podcast. They are great, and again, it's a free resource our patrons have made available for you to use. Next, you're going to prepare your kids if you have kids. This is if it's applicable. Prepping when you have children is different. You have little kiddos to consider, and the items in your stockpile needs to work for your kids. Having things for them to do is an important part of keeping them productive and to give them some sort of normalcy. Prepare your elderly and special needs family members. We care for our 6-year-old autistic son Huxley. He has needs and wants that are going to be needed not only to keep him right, but also to keep his mother and father right. He has a daily routine that if it gets out of synchronization, it throws everybody off. So we built and are continuing to build a buffer for him. A buffer means to lessen or moderate the impact of something. We have a standalone electronic device with his favorite TV shows on them, things that he sees every day during his routine. We have lesson plans printed out for homeschooling. We keep an extra stock of his favorite snacks. So when the time comes, we can continue to give him those things, or when the time comes, we can wean him off those things to adapt to current situations. Elderly have the same type of needs as most special needs family members. They need certain medications to get by, or they need some sort of special diet that needs to be addressed. Either way, you need to make a visual inventory of what you need to continue if things get interrupted. Let's talk about hygiene items. Next, you're going to want to keep hygiene items on hand. During a disaster scenario, bacteria can thrive, and that means you and your family might be at a higher risk of getting sick, so staying clean is essential. First thing about your bodily hygiene, have plenty of toothpaste and extra sets of toothbrushes in your closet. Soap for everybody in the family can be a good benefit. Don't skip out on deodorant. Having to hang out with a smelly family is not going to keep tempers at bay. For those of you in more urban areas, I would consider adding extra cleaning supplies to your preparedness lists. Paper towels, bleach, disinfectant spray, kitty litter for a makeshift toilet, and garbage bags are some items to grab. Your sewage may not work, so this will keep you sanitary until it does come back online. You might also want to get paper plates and such to stop dishes from piling up. Keeping bacteria growth to a minimum is a crucial idea here. Ladies, you know what you need to do for your sanitation purposes. I'm not going to get into it. Bathing may become difficult if water is not available. Look into other options like wet wipes, or they have this thing called UAs, which are wet wipes specifically meant for bathing. Or if you are in a more rural area, you can do something like take a smoke bath from a fire, and that will also kill bacteria. You also need to prepare your pets, folks. Don't forget to prepare your pets when you're getting ready for a disaster. You should have water stored for your pets as well, same as humans, 1 gallon per pet per day. They also need to have pet food available, so stockpile a couple of extra bags of food for them. If your special needs pets have any medications they might need, or any flea and tick medications they might need, whatever is required to keep your animals healthy should be in your stockpile. Let's talk about communication. The next thing is about how you're going to stay in touch with other people. More than likely, you won't lose your cell phone service, so that's a good thing. So staying updated is just a matter of keeping our phones charged. There's crank radios for that you can use to crank and keep your phones charged, or consider getting a simple 100-watt foldable solar panel that has a charger on it for your devices. Weather radios and ham radios are good to have as well. A minimum of a weather forecast radio. You'll need to listen to weather forecasts and emergency transmissions to get details about a particular disaster. That'll get you from point A to point B. have water purification methods. Learning how to purify water is crucial. If you don't have enough water at home, you have to be able to purify water that you can find. Let's say you're in an urban area and you have run out of your stockpile. You will have to go find water. There are many methods such as boiling or solar pasteurizing water, but the quick fix is to have a filtration system. The quick fix is to have a filtration straw. This straw works for a single person. They're very cost effective. You can purchase one for each of your family members, and they'll be good to go for at least 500 gallons of water. Another choice is to get water purification tablets. This takes time for your water to get treated. There's also use of chlorine bleach to purify water. 2 drops of bleach per gallon of water, and then you'll let it sit for at least 30 minutes to get all the bacteria killed. So get to learning and figuring out what water purification methods you're going to want to use. So let's prepare our home for a disaster. Preparing your home for a disaster is one of the last steps you're going to want to take because you're going to need your stockpile up before you do this. But it doesn't mean that it's not important. There are many ways to do this. You could get a generator. If you want a generator, you can get something like a 5500 watt gasoline or propane generator, dual fuel generator. This would take about 5 gallons of gasoline to run your generator for 8 hours. I wouldn't recommend doing that. I would recommend only like maybe an hour, maybe 2 to keep your refrigerators cool until you can use up all that food. But the longer you have a generator on, the more of a signature you're going to put on your home because of noise. Most generators run very loudly, and you're going to make a signature stating, hey, I've got a generator, I've got other stuff, come and rob me. There are generators out there that do run below 70 decibels. They're not that expensive if you're going towards the generator mode, but again, I would keep those to a minimum. Next, make a plan for what you're going to do for a disaster for home security. Crime is liable to go up during a disaster as people get desperate for food and supplies. Think about a security system that doesn't take any power. There's plenty of books out there, plenty of different things you can do around your home to make it look like it's not unoccupied, but fortified. Folks, I can go on and on about the many things you can do to prepare now. I urge you to sit down with your spouse or older kids and come up with a plan on what you need to do in these next 10 days before the election hits. Lastly, I want to motivate you to get out of your house, walk over to your neighbor's door, and knock on it. Introduce yourself. Get to know your neighbors, even if you live in an apartment. Get to know the tenants on your floor. Groups in emergency situations tend to live a lot longer than those trying to do it alone. Figure out how to get prepared for a disaster in just days. It may seem complicated, but with the right plan, you can do anything. You can have an inventory that will carry you through almost any disaster that you can encounter. I encourage each of you to go out and vote if you are legally able. Vote for the candidate you think make the best fit for the President of the United States. Your choice is your choice is your choice. Don't let somebody persuade you from your choice. But I do encourage you to do your homework before you make a choice. This podcast is being broadcast on Patreon as well as YouTube and is sponsored by the gracious patrons supporting this channel. Links to the medical supply list and pantry list can be found below in the description. If you are watching this off of YouTube, I request that you give it a thumbs up. And if you like our content, hit subscribe. And if you hit that bell button, it will give you updates every time new content comes out from our channel. I'm Patrick from the Breakaway Homestead, and I hope you have a good one. We'll see you on the next show.